nobody better at talking about this that I know, and it's emotional eating. I think we've all eaten our feelings before. I know I can sit down and pound about 10,000 calories in an emotional eating binge session. Um, so, so many people tie things to, they think it's the food.
Hmm.
And a lot of time, is it really the food? Like, what is emotional eating?
So
Will you just kind of go into that a little bit?
yeah, I mean, emotional eating is just utilizing food as a strategy to manage things that we don't have tools to manage, or we've developed these strategies as a way to. So I always think about it as like this: it's like it's a strategy, right? It's not a bad strategy. It's just someone said it just shouldn't be our only strategy. So the idea is that like you are utilizing an external stimulus to regulate an internal emotion or turmoil. Generally speaking, we're utilizing these things to try to avoid physical or emotional pain. Generally, it's an emotional pain. And same thing that maybe someone might use drugs or alcohol or shopping or sex or any kind of real behavior. It's just that food is the tool, food is the hammer, and so we think that food is the driver, the thing that's causing it. And ironically, it's usually a combination, obviously, of like whatever that emotional point is, but also it's often triggered by uh, restricting food, of telling yourself you can't have things. And so, again, and a big thing for me in my practice in general is not pathologizing behaviors. We spend so much time in the industry doing, oh, no foods are good or bad. No behaviors are good or bad. They're all good. Like all of these things come for a reason. Emotional eating is a good thing. It helped you to get through a point in your life, and it's just that it doesn't serve you now, or maybe not serving your goals. And so you want to find other strategies to help manage those emotions, manage those expectations, manage those pieces of life, other than these food items, which actually don't solve the problem. It causes a very temporary relief, that then is usually followed by guilt and shame, and then that can lead to further binges or further episodes.
Perfectly said. And if I may ask or expound upon that, not really, I want to let you be the expert here, but is it really any different than how people use, let's say, something that's typically viewed as a good behavior, i.e., using the gym as a coping mechanism, where it can be taken to
Well,
extremes as
yeah,
well?
I mean, eh, again, we 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 have a tendency. So I think part of the reason why the gym is looked at as a good behavior and maybe eating food is because we've placed a morality upon this that we pretend we don't. Um, Everyone can say what they want about like how they don't judge people for being overweight, or but when you look at how people behave when they talk about people's weight, it's very hard for the general population to believe that it is not a moral obligation to look a certain way. They think that people choose to be overweight, and I've talked about it on other podcasts and things. It's like everyone, the people that think that they have a very strong choice in their lives are pretty uh, probably sadly mistaken, right? Just from like an aspect of like what really goes on in the brain before you make a choice. So I think environment plays such a big role. So many things play such a big role in these tiny decisions that we think we're making. Nobody is choosing to be overweight. Nobody's choosing many of these things, right? There are things that will lead them down the path of that, and some of that is genetic, some of that is hormonal, some of that is environmental, some of that is lifestyle. There's so many factors, but if given the choice in today's environment, and just the difficulties that you would face, nobody's choosing obesity. Like nobody wakes up and says, "This is what I want," and I think when we place that moral dilemma on people, we are automatically causing harm. Whereas when you look at someone who goes to the gym, we place them as morally good. I don't know about you. I've hung out in a lot of gyms. There's a lot of people that are just giant pieces of shit at the gym. There's no moral like goodness that comes out of it. It's cool. I tend to like people who go to the gym because we have something in common, but it's not because their value system is better than others. Like, but people love to think that because they like to work out, it somehow places someone else. So I think that's part of where the good bad thing. Uh, Now I will say, what are some of the big factors that lean people towards this idea of or lead them towards the propensity maybe to gain weight or have struggle with weight. Many times it's emotional, right? And it's depression and anxiety. Now, there's a lot of research that shows people who have depression, who have anxiety, can see very strong acute benefits from exercise. And so, if we can utilize exercise to combat some of those things. So I don't like to pit them against each other in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, I mean, the gym or exercise is going to positively impact, I think, for most people, their behaviors around food. And in some ways, the behaviors of food can positively impact the gym, although I find more people are able to commit to an exercise practice and have struggles with their emotional eating than people. If someone is able to manage their emotional eating episodes, the gym itself probably becomes less important because they don't need that as a regulatory tool, because we're really managing all those things. They then will go to the gym because they love it, not because they're trying to get smaller or trying to fit into something or does that make sense?
That makes 100% sense, and I wholeheartedly agree. It is interesting how we tend to, you've been at this a long time, I've been at this quite a while as well. We do attach that, well, gym good, food bad. And, this guy jacked, this woman super toned, they must be good, they must be bad. When a lot of times you see that there ends up becoming that the gym and the food, they have a very unhealthy relationship with both. But because someone looks a certain way.
And I won't even judge their relationship with that, because, like, again, I think I'm probably a little bit better, but there's been periods in my life that if you took it in isolation and looked at the gym and said, man, you spend all your time at the gym, you spend all this time like worrying about your food things. Well, at that time in my life, my obsessive compulsive behaviors around food in the gym were keeping me from drinking. And so, yeah, like maybe those behaviors. Now I had to also kind of work, right? But I am pretty safely far away from being worried about falling into a bottle of vodka anymore. That's not really a concern of mine. And so I've been able to back up off the gym. But for a time there, that was a very strong concern. I needed something. So again, like all of these things, it's so fluid. So like there's really it's really hard to pin any of these things down. But yeah, like there's the relationship in and of itself is about intent. And so it can be healthy, it can be unhealthy, it can be both.
I think that's very fair. I think that's fair. You and I have a similar background when it comes to drugs, alcohol, those kind of things. And that is one thing working with my clients. I'm fairly sure you do it as well. These things, and you said it earlier, these things served you at some point. The alcohol served me at some point because I was not ready to handle my traumas yet. The drugs, same thing. And I think that's a very good way to phrase it when it comes to food, when it comes to the exercise. And that it is, but is it serving you any longer? Now, here's one for us. Obviously, they are skills that are taught. I have a psychologist friend of mine, and two RDs and we sent out a questionnaire to about 500 people, and it was very interesting. I say, and I ask all my clients this as well. When you have a great day, when you're celebrating, whatever you want to call it, what three things do you use to celebrate? And then we said, if you have a bad day or if you need comfort, what three things do you use? Those three answers were almost identical for the celebration and the comfort, which you want to dive into that a little bit, why that is and why that could be maybe might end up long-term being detrimental?
Well, I think probably part of that is, so one of the things I always think about with like surveys and research or anything is we want to examine too, like what is the question being asked. So does the question lead someone to answer things probably similarly? Well, there's probably some of that in the questioning, right? Like, so if you were to ask someone like, hey, how do you celebrate? Oh, I do this. Okay, well, we're automatically leading to them like, oh, like this is celebration. Well, how do you handle sadness? Well, it's kind of the same thing. So I think probably, where one of the interesting things that you probably do with clients is understanding that food is celebratory. It's also comforting, right? And that's because food is a major part of life. Alcohol also celebratory, also comforting, right? Like, and so I think those things are pretty ingrained in our culture, um, to the point where I don't know that that would ever really be separated unless there's a major shift in just overall culture. I don't see that ever changing with food. I think food should be a thing you celebrate with, and I think food should be something you can kind of commiserate with, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with like being sad and getting a pint of ice cream, right? Um, I mean, seriously, I mean, shit. Again, like for me, it's like, hey, because like it used to be a gallon of vodka and an 8 ball. Like
I mean,
that's a way
hot
more.
kettle, dude. Hot
Yeah,
kettle. So
that's going to be a way worse come down tomorrow than the ice cream. But I think the thing to think about there is again I think mostly about this in kind of environmental terms of like why do people need to have so much comfort, so much celebration, so much distraction. Well, we've shifted into this world where life is really just lived about like kind of just constantly pumping out work and being productive, and we don't play. So everything is celebrating your wins or commiserating your losses. Well, I know we all want to rack life up to wins and losses, but there's not, no one really gives a shit. Like, if you win, like, guess what? Like, Elon Musk is still going to die one day, and he's still going to be buried, and he's still going to get eaten by worms. Like, it doesn't matter. We love this place to self important. So I think when we stop looking at things like that, well, we don't have to celebrate. Like you just, we celebrate events, right? Right? Like we celebrate community, we celebrate family, we celebrate being a part of something greater than ourselves. Like again, we talked about this. Like I'm not religious, but you are. So like you have a very strong sense of community, of other, of bigger, and I think that's a really important thing for people to have. You need to find that in something, and I think that lack of that's individuality sometimes leads people to constantly need to like celebrate wins and commiserate losses because that's all they have to chalk up life to, rather than being like, hey, you know what? I have this community of people. I mean, it's so stupid. I go to jiu-jitsu every morning at 6 a.m., right? But those guys, every day, we get together and we do something hard and we do something stupid that doesn't make any sense for a bunch of middle-aged dudes that are, have jobs and most of them have kids and stuff. But it brings us together. It gives us something bigger than ourselves that's important for an hour a day. So I think people can find more of those things. And again, that's what I work on with people is like, we don't talk about food really that much in my practice, almost never. It's everything else and then that's how the food stuff improves.
I think that's incredible, and you hit so many things. We could spend hours talking about that, man. But you're right. Like it's one thing that I think about. My faith is incredibly. We've had great talks about that,
Yeah.
about our views on things, and even if from my faith standpoint, like it actually says you should find joy in your food and drink. It's actually in there. That joy goes away if there's shame and guilt, and
Yeah.
maybe. But
Yeah,
as far as
okay,
community,
well, think about what joy is. Like joy is being mindful of it, right? And we also want to think about the time when these things are written. Like food was a lot of times a luxury. We're talking a couple thousand years ago. Or depending on which books you read, this would be 4,000 years ago. Having honey meant you were one of the richest people in the world. So, like now, I mean, how hard is it to get a sugar packet, right? Like, So thinking about how that is, like, we've been hardwired. Again, we talk about environment, you talk about Dolo, like he's a big one who always talks about that. Is like, yeah, man, like good luck. Like,
Environment matters so much, man. I know we talk about food some, and with the way I do it, so much of our end is identity and environment, and getting down and shifting that identity. And we all have different approaches, but I think most of us, in this group that we've been talking about, tend to try to get to the same place. But I really wanted to touch on emotional eating. I've had, you hear people all the time, the one thing I do for myself at night is my bowl of ice cream. And then we have to go and, why, and dig into that deeper. And it's not even about the ice cream. It's not.
yeah,
And sometimes it
and
is,
like,
because ice cream is dadgum delicious.
yeah,
Like,
and like, I mean, I eat ice cream every night. I mean, I have like, I do. I bought a Ninja Creamy, so I make it with Fairlife. It's pretty good. Um, but I can't eat, like, if I like regular ice cream, I get sluggish. I feel like crap. There's a lot of fat, and it's. I don't really care. Like, I can eat plenty of calories. I work out all the time. Like, I get away with a lot. Um, but I don't eat ice cream because, like, the dairy gets me stuffy. I don't sleep as well. My stomach hurts in the morning. I don't perform as well at jujitsu. I was talking to somebody. So I had to start taking this asthma. I got diagnosed with asthma like last month finally, because I've been having trouble breathing. So I got this new medicine, and it gave me thrush. It was like this whole thing, but I have to take this at night, and I have to brush my teeth. So I grew up. I've always been a morning toothbrusher. I never brush my teeth at night. So before the hate, I know, like, everyone thinks that's gross and weird. I just never
you're
have.
going
It's
to
kind
get
of the same thing.
annihilated.
Yeah, it's like I don't make my bed in the morning because I'm like, why? It's just going to get dirty. My wife makes it. It's important to her. I'm like, I would never make a bed. To me, that's stupid. It's going to get back into it. I never brush my teeth at night because I was like, like, it's not, like, maybe when I was dating my wife and I wanted to have fresh breath, but now it's like, we've been married, we were together 20 years. But I had to start brushing my teeth with this medication, or else I would get thrush. And I got thrush the first day, even when I was brushing my teeth, and it was terrible. Real easy. I am now a nighttime toothbrusher every night. It shifted overnight because the penalty for not brushing my teeth was having, like, my mouth was like swollen and painful and like sores in it. Like, it was terrible. And so that was a real simple switch. I could change my behavior overnight because it was important to me. So you talk about identity. It's like, yeah, like, how do you do that? Maybe I can not eat ice cream because I know that it's going to affect my jujitsu in the morning, and that's important to me. I go to bed at 9 o'clock at night because it'll affect my jujitsu, and that's important to me. It's just, how does that work out? And so I think, like you said, like, environment can dictate your identity, and your environment can both dictate each other to get you to the place you kind of want to be.
100%. And it's so powerful. Like, all those different approaches, a lot of us coaches use different, similar. I don't think any of us, the people that we mentioned are going to be macro churner, like treating people like lab rats. Um, but it is one that really stuck out this week, with somebody, and it talked about identity. There's a whole other pod or live, but I asked her, she's like, I just want to be a healthy person. I can't wait until I'm a healthy person. I was like, well, you already are making that shift. You've already started shifting your identity there. Think about vacation. Do you wait? Because she's in Ohio, right? So I think it was -8 when we spoke. And she said, I know, dude. I know. And I was like, let's say you're going to Florida. Let's take you to Florida so you can have some warmth, right, in the ocean. And do you wait until you say you're on vacation when you're in Florida? Or do you wait until you clock out and you say peace out, like you're on the trip? And she's like, well, the second I clock out. It's like the second you decided you wanted to do something, your identity started to shift to that healthy person. The Florida, that weight, that look, all those things you've been so hyper fixated on for so long are the when and the where. The who is what matters. And so I think that is, even just shifting that identity, that focus there, has even helped with the emotional eating, using that as a comfort. Like, wait, this doesn't line up.
Yeah, and people need to understand that everyone thinks they want the outcome. I work with very, very highly motivated, very highly educated, very high performing individuals. Like, all my clients are PhDs, doctors, CEO. Like, it's just, that's who I work with, and they all still struggle with these things, right? It's not like they're not undisciplined, they're not lazy, they're, you know, they they're more
Yeah.
successful and more accomplished than I will ever be. And they're all smarter too. It's great. I love it because I don't ever have to talk down to anyone. But one of the things that is always common amongst these people, and myself included, is that goal acquisition is not satisfactory. I've achieved most of the goals I've ever set out to accomplish in my life, and never once have I felt great about it. I was like, done, on to the next thing. Because we think about what goal acquisition is, it's about anticipation. It's the same thing with the dopamine when any of these things where you're chasing an emotional response. Dopamine is an anticipatory hormone. It is not a reward hormone. So it's about that chasing of something. So thinking about Florida is what the person is getting excited about. When they get there, it's great, but it's not about getting to Florida. It's about thinking about getting there and learning that. And that's why we talk so much about process. Is when you really start to understand that the process is really the goal, then you can let go of the actual goal and just use that as a little pin to put in your maps. Like you pin your map and you're like, that's where I need to get to. That doesn't matter anymore because I need to worry about these things. And then that's where you start to get the joy and you start to get the again, that identity of that's the person that does those things.
Yep. I really, I could drone on and just add to that, but I really don't think there's any need. And you hit the nail on the head. If you look at those CEOs, you look at those super high performers, it's okay, hit this, what's next? Okay, hit this, what's next? Okay, hit this, what's next? I've had people, a million people, myself included, I'm sure you've been there, where you're like, okay, I got to my goal body fat, I got to my goal weight. Okay, now what?
Yeah, cool.
Me.
Yeah.
It's like playing a video game. You remember when you're a kid, like, when I beat this game,
I was not good at video games. I would never beat them. I would have to quit. Like I was like,
no, I bought you remember the Game Genie for the Nintendo? Like it allowed you to cheat.
Yeah.
And like actually, I still couldn't beat the dadgum game half the time with the Game Genie, but that's just whatever.
Yeah,
but
I never could finish Mario Brothers.
Oh, no.
No.
Donkey Kong, forget it. And I'll tell you what, I still want to shoot that dog from Duck Hunt, like in the face.
Yeah. Duck Hunt, I was good because I could just cheat and hold the gun up right to the screen.
But like, but that little dog laughing at me. Did you see him trigger me? Like this many years later, man. But like,
this is actually why you went into the military, right? It was like that dog sent you.
Right. I went in the military to learn how to kill that stupid ass dog.